The letter came on a Thursday. Emily Gray found it wedged beneath her door at 7:30. The envelope already damp from the fog that had been seeping through Bloomsbury since dawn. The paper was expensive, cream-laid, with a texture like eggshell. She could feel the fibers catch against her fingertips as she tore it open. Miss Gray, my uncle, Edwin Holloway, passed 3 weeks ago. The shop on Marchmont Street requires clearing. You come recommended for such work. One condition: do not open the gold pocket watch after dark. Yours, Margaret Holloway. Emily read it twice. The second time, she noticed the ink had smudged where the writer's hand must have rested. A left-handed woman, then. Probably young. The warning about the watch sat at the end like a stain. She folded the letter and slipped it into her coat pocket. Marchmont Street looked abandoned in the afternoon light. The cobblestones were slick, with something between rain and mist. Emily counted the numbers on the shop fronts, brass digits gone green with age, until she found number 47. The window display was dense with timepieces, carriage clocks with Roman numerals, pocket watches hanging from brass hooks like fruit, a long case regulator standing sentry at the back. The glass had that particular kind of grime that comes from years of coal smoke and fog, turning everything behind it into a sepia photograph. She tried the door. Locked. She knocked. Nothing. Then she noticed the bell pull beside the frame. Wrought iron, shaped like a cat's paw. She tugged it once. Inside, something rang, thin and dry, like a cricket dying. The woman who answered was not Margaret Holloway. Too old, 60, perhaps 70, with hair the color of pewter pinned back so tight it pulled at her temples. She wore a housekeeper's black, the fabric worn shiny at the elbows. Miss Gray? Yes. Miss Holloway said you'd come. The woman stepped aside, leaving barely enough room for Emily to slip past. I'm Mrs. Kettle. I keep the flat upstairs. The shop smelled of metal and dust and something else Emily couldn't name. Old wool, maybe, or the particular mustiness of oil gone rancid. The floor was dark wood, scarred from decades of foot traffic, and it made a different sound under each step. A creak here, a groan there, like walking across an instrument. Mr. Holloway died in his sleep, Mrs. Kettle said. She didn't look at Emily. Her eyes were fixed on something in the middle distance. Very peaceful. Found him in the chair by the workbench with his hands folded. Emily nodded, though the woman wasn't watching for a response. The clock stopped that morning, Mrs. Kettle continued. All of them. At 6:17. Haven't wound them since. The silence in the shop was not really silence. Emily could hear the gas lamp on the street outside, making its faint hissing sound. Could hear Mrs. Kettle breathing through her nose. A slight whistle on the inhale. Could hear the building itself settling, the way old buildings do. Timbers contracting as the temperature dropped. But no ticking. Dozens of clocks, and not one of them beating. The watch is in the back room, Mrs. Kettle said. In the bureau. Top drawer. She moved toward the door, her shoes making soft, sticky sounds on the floorboards. I'll be upstairs if you need me, but I won't come down after 5. Why not? Mrs. Kettle stopped with her hand on the door frame. She didn't turn around. Things start up again after 5. Then she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her, leaving Emily alone with the frozen timepieces. The back room was colder than the shop floor. Emily stood in the doorway for a moment, letting her eyes adjust. One window, narrow, its glass thick with grime. The light that came through was the color of old broth. A workbench ran along the left wall. Jeweler's loops hung from brass hooks. Tiny screwdrivers arranged by size. A vise clamped to the edge, its jaws still holding a broken mainspring. Everything had that look of interrupted work, as if the person using these tools had only stepped away for a moment. The bureau stood against the far wall. Mahogany, or what used to be mahogany before decades of London air had darkened it to near black. Emily crossed the room. Her footsteps sounded different here, hollower. She pulled open the top drawer. Inside, nested in compartments lined with rotting velvet, watch cases, crystals, a tangle of chains, and in the center, a box. Midnight blue, the kind of blue you only see right before full dark. The velvet nap had worn away at the corners, showing the cardboard underneath. She lifted it out. Light, almost weightless. She set it on the workbench and opened the lid. The watch lay on a bed of silk that had gone gray with age. Gold case, hunter style, smooth except where decades of handling had worn the metal into something that looked almost soft. No engraving on the outside. Just the small depression where a thumb would rest to press the catch. Emily picked it up. It was warm. Not possible. The room was cold. Her fingers were cold. But the watch felt like it had been held in someone's palm only moments before. She turned it over. On the back, scratched so fine, she almost missed it. EH 1884. She pressed the catch. The lid opened with a sound like an exhale. The face was ivory, or had been. Now it was the color of old teeth. Roman numerals in faded black. 2 hands, one for hours, one for minutes. No second hand. Both hands pointed to 3:22. Emily waited. The hands didn't move. She brought the watch closer to her ear. Nothing. Not even the faintest tick. Dead, then. Stopped at 3:22 in the afternoon on some forgotten day. She was about to close the case when she noticed the inner lid. Gold, like the outer casing, but engraved. She tilted it toward the window to catch what little light there was. To E, who taught me that time can stand still. The letters were so small they looked like they'd been written with a pen. Emily ran her fingertip over them. She could feel the grooves, each one cut with absolute precision. Love, then, or something close to it. She set the watch back in its box and turned to the workbench. A ledger sat beside the vise, leather-bound, its spine cracked from years of opening. She pulled it toward her and let it fall open. The pages were covered in neat, tiny handwriting. Dates, names, descriptions of repairs. She flipped backward through the years. 1920, 1915, 1900. Further back, to pages so old the ink had faded to brown. November 1884. There, at the bottom of the page, was a card pasted in. Yellowed, the edges torn. Gold Hunter watch. Swiss movement. Escapement wheel shows wear at 7 o'clock position. Owner declined repair. Leave it as it is, he said. It keeps better time this way. Emily frowned. A worn escapement would make a watch run erratically. Not better. She turned back to the box on the bench. The watch was still there, hands still frozen at 3:22. Then she heard it. Not a tick. Something older. A sound like metal teeth grinding against each other. Trying to catch. Failing. Trying again. She leaned closer. The minute hand trembled. Just once. So slight she thought she'd imagined it. Then it moved. Not forward. Backward. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 3. The hand crept counterclockwise with that same grinding sound, like something fighting against its own mechanism. Then it stopped at 3:19. Emily held her breath. The hand shuddered, swung forward again. 3:20, 3:21, 3:22, and stopped. Outside, somewhere in the street, a church bell began to strike 5 o'clock. Emily didn't leave. She told herself it was professional curiosity. Estate work required thoroughness, documentation. But the truth sat heavier. She wanted to see what the watch would do when darkness came. She lit the lamp on the workbench. The flame caught, wavered, then steadied into a small yellow fist of light. Shadows pooled in the corners of the room, thick as spilled ink. The watch lay open in its box. 3:22. Still. Emily pulled the ledger closer and began reading through the entries for 1,884. Looking for something, though she couldn't say what. Most were routine. Mainspring replacements. Crystal repairs. But near the end of November, she found a page that had been written differently. The handwriting was the same, but looser, as if written quickly, or with feeling. November 17th. The Gold Hunter came back today. Same problem. I told him again the escapement needs replacing. He smiled and said, "It runs backwards sometimes, doesn't it?" I said yes. He said, "Good. Then it can take me back to 3:22 on a Thursday afternoon." That's where I met her. Emily read it twice. Then she noticed something at the bottom of the page. Written so small it was nearly invisible. I didn't tell him it's not the watch that's going backward, is less than #. 5 hashes greater than it's him. A sound made her look up. The shop beyond the doorway had changed. All those frozen clocks, silent since morning, had started again. Not together. Each one keeping its own time, its own rhythm. The carriage clock on the shelf ticked briskly, like footsteps. The regulator in the corner swung its pendulum in slow, heavy beats. Somewhere overhead, something chimed. Just once. A note that hung in the air long after it should have faded. Emily stood. The floorboards groaned under her weight, but the sound was swallowed by the ticking. She moved to the doorway and looked out into the shop. It was like watching a mechanism wake up. Every clock face glowed faintly in the darkness, catching what little light came through the fogged window. Hands moved. Gears turned. The air filled with the sound of time being measured in 100 different ways. But underneath it all, she could still hear that other sound. The grinding, coming from behind her. She turned back to the workbench. The gold watch was moving again. The minute hand crept forward. 3:23, 3:24. Each movement accompanied by that sound of metal against metal, like teeth that didn't quite fit together anymore. Then, at 3:27, it stopped, trembled, and began to move backward. Emily pulled the jeweler's loop from its hook and fitted it to her eye. She brought her face close to the watch, close enough to smell the old oil and brass. Through the magnification, she could see past the face, into the mechanism itself. The escapement wheel turned. Slowly, each tooth catching against the pallet fork, releasing, catching again. But there, at what would be 7 o'clock on a clock face, One tooth was worn down, not broken, worn, smoothed away by years of pressure. When the wheel turned and that damaged tooth met the pallet, it didn't catch properly. It slipped. The wheel jerked backward a fraction. Just enough to send the minute hand stuttering in reverse. But that wasn't what made Emily's hands go cold. It was the pattern. The wheel turned smoothly until it reached that damaged tooth. Then it caught, slipped, reversed. Always at the same point. Always bringing the hands back to 322. The damage was too precise. Too perfectly placed. As if someone had held this watch, opened it at exactly the same moment, every day, for 40 years. The pressure of a thumb on the catch, the warmth of a palm against gold, over and over, until the metal remembered. Emily removed the loop. The watch had settled again at 3:22. She checked her own wristwatch. 11:15. She should go home. Come back in daylight. But her coat was still damp from the fog, and the room was warmer now with all the clocks running. She pulled the desk chair closer to the workbench and sat. Just for a while. Just to see what happened at midnight. The ticking surrounded her, filled her ears, filled the space between her thoughts. She found herself breathing in rhythm with the regulator's pendulum, slow and deep. Her eyelids grew heavy. Then every clock in the shop struck 12. It wasn't a sound. It was an event. Bells and chimes and gongs, all slightly out of sync, creating a wave of noise that crashed through the room and left ringing silence in its wake. Emily jerked awake. Her neck was stiff. The lamp had burned low. And in the sudden quiet after the bells, she heard it clearly. The gold watch was ticking, not grinding, not stuttering, ticking, clean, steady. The sound a watch makes when everything inside it works the way it should. She looked down. The hands were moving. Forward. 3 past midnight. 4 past. 5 past. Each second marked by that perfect tick each movement smooth as water. Then, at 7 minutes past, the sound changed. The tick became a catch. The minute hand slowed, stopped, and with that same grinding reluctance, began its backward dance. 6 minutes passed. 5, 4, all the way back to midnight. Then forward again, then back, like something trying to walk. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, never quite reaching where it wanted to go. Emily sat and watched until the lamp burned out, until the room filled with the gray light that comes before dawn. The watch kept dancing. Forward, back, trying to get somewhere, or trying to return. Emily found the diary in a drawer she'd missed. Not in the bureau, not on the workbench. It was tucked inside a japanned box on the top shelf, hidden behind a row of mainspring barrels. She only found it because she'd climbed on the chair to check the upper storage, and the box had slid forward when she'd moved the barrels aside. Black leather, small enough to fit in a coat pocket. The spine was cracked in 3 places. The pages loose inside the binding. She brought it down carefully and set it beside the watch. The first entry was dated March 1883. Accounts, mostly. Money owed. Money paid. The handwriting was younger than the ledgers, with flourishes on the capital letters. A man who'd learned to write well and wanted people to know it. She flipped forward, watching the entries thin out as the months progressed. By August, whole weeks went blank. Then, in November, the writing changed. Smaller, faster, like someone trying to catch something before it disappeared. November 14th, 1884. Bought the watch today. Swiss movement, 18 jewels. The man at Clerkenwell said it keeps perfect time. I told him I didn't need perfect. I needed reliable. He looked at me as if I'd said something mad. Emily turned the page. The next entry was 3 days later. November 17th, saw her today. Thames Embankment. The book stall near Blackfriars. She was looking at a copy of Dante, The Longfellow translation. Wore a dark blue cloak with the hood down. Her hair was pinned up but coming loose at the temples. I could see where the wind had pulled it free. I stood there for 7 minutes. Counted them. Couldn't think of a single thing to say. Then I remembered the watch. I asked her the time. The handwriting here had pressed so hard into the paper that Emily could feel the grooves on the other side. She ran her finger over them, then continued reading. She looked at me. Brown eyes, the color of turned earth after rain. She smiled and said my watch was 7 minutes fast. I said I knew. She asked why I didn't fix it. I told her some things shouldn't run on time. She laughed. Bought the Dante. Walked away toward Waterloo Bridge. I checked my watch. 3:22. Emily stopped reading. Looked at the gold watch on the bench. Still at 3:22. Still grinding its way through that endless backward dance. She turned the page. November 19th. Went back to the bookstall. She was there again. Same cloak. Different book. Keats this time. I asked her if she'd found what she was looking for in the Dante. She said she was still in the first circle. I said that was the best one. She asked why. I said because in limbo you're not suffering. You're just waiting. And sometimes waiting is better than arriving. She said her name was Eleanor. The entries continued. Every few days at first, then every day, always at the same bookstall, always in the afternoon. Emily skipped ahead, catching fragments. December 3rd. She told me she works at the British Museum, cataloging medieval manuscripts. Her hands are always stained with ink. December 10th. Rain today. She didn't come. I waited until 4:30. The watch felt heavier in my pocket. December 12th. She apologized for missing our meeting. I said we didn't have a meeting. She said, "Don't we?" Then she touched the watch chain hanging from my vest. Just her fingertips. Just for a moment. She said, "Still 7 minutes fast?" I said yes. She said, "Good." Emily had to stop. The lamp was guttering. She trimmed the wick and adjusted the flame. Outside, the morning traffic had started. Carts, horses, someone shouting about fresh milk. She turned to the last pages of the diary. Most were blank, but near the end, dated April 1885, one final entry. The watch stopped today. Eleanor brought it to the shop herself. Said she'd found a man in Hatton Garden who could fix it. Make it keep proper time. I told her I didn't want proper time. She said, I know, but we can't stay at 322 forever. I opened it in front of her, showed her the escapement wheel, the worn tooth. I said, this is where your finger presses when you open it. Right here. For 6 months, every time I've taken this out to look at the time, I've been thinking of you. The metal remembers. Look, it's worn a groove. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, what if I want to remember something different? I said, then we'll make new grooves. We were married in June. The watch was her gift to me. Inscribed. She told me she'd left the escapement alone. Said some kinds of damage were worth keeping. The entry ended there. Emily turned the remaining pages, but they were empty. She closed the diary and sat for a long moment, listening to the clocks tick around her. Then she picked up the gold watch, opened it, looked at the inscription again. The letters so small they vanished unless you held them to the light just right. To E, who taught me that time can stand still. She pressed her thumb against the catch, held it there, felt the warmth of her own hand seeping into the gold. The minute hand shivered, moved forward one increment, then back to 322. Still dancing, still trying to return, still keeping time the only way it knew how. The clockmaker on Gray's Inn Road was older than his shop. Emily found him in the back, hunched over a workbench that looked like it had been there since before gas lamps. The sign outside said Caldwell and Sons, but there were no sons. Just Mr. Caldwell, 80 if he was a day, with fingers that shook when they weren't holding tools. Holloway's piece, he said before Emily could speak. He didn't look up from the pocket watch he was working on. heard he'd passed. Was wondering when someone would bring it round. Emily set the blue velvet box on the bench. Caldwell put down his loop and his tweezers, wiped his hands on a cloth that might have been white once, opened the box. He stared at the watch for a long time. Didn't touch it. Just looked. Still running backward then, he said finally. You've seen it before. 40 years ago. Maybe more. Caldwell picked up the watch, held it to his ear. His eyebrows drew together. Same problem. Escapement wheel. Seventh tooth worn down to almost nothing. He set it back in the box. He wouldn't let me fix it then either. Why not? Caldwell reached for his tea. Cold, probably. He drank it anyway. Said it kept the right time for him. Said it was the rest of the world that was running wrong. Emily pulled out the diary, opened it to the final entry. His wife gave it to him. Eleanor. Did you know her? Met her once. Maybe twice. Caldwell fitted his loop back to his eye and bent over the watch again. Came in here one time asking about the repair. This was before they were married. She wanted to know if fixing the wheel would erase the wear pattern. What did you tell her? Told her the truth. New wheel would run smooth. No more backward motion. Watch would keep proper time like it was meant to. He straightened up, removed the loop. She thanked me and left. Week later, Holloway came in and told me to leave it alone. Said his future wife had decided some damage was worth keeping. Emily looked down at the watch. 3:22. Always 3:22. Can you fix it now? She asked. Caldwell was quiet for a moment. Then he reached under his bench and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside, nested in oiled paper, was a brass wheel no bigger than a shirt button. Ordered this in 1886, he said. Thought Holloway might change his mind one day. He never did. He held the wheel up to the light. Perfect. Every tooth identical. Could have it installed in 20 minutes. Watch would run like new. Forward only. Never backward. Never stop at 3:22 unless it was actually 3:22. He set the wheel back in its box, closed the lid, but then it would just be a watch, he said. Emily picked up the gold case, felt its warmth, that impossible warmth it always had, as if someone had just been holding it. She thought of Edwin Holloway, dead 3 weeks now. His clocks all stopped at 6:17 in the morning. Thought of the shop coming back to life at 5 o'clock. Thought of this watch, dancing its 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, trying forever to return to a November afternoon 40 years gone. What happened to her? Emily asked. Eleanor. Caldwell's face changed. Something in it closed, the way a door closes in a house when someone's died. Influenza. 1918. Same winter that took half of London. He picked up his tea again, looked into the empty cup. Holloway brought the watch in the day after she died. Asked me to look at it. Said it had stopped completely. I opened it up. Nothing wrong with it mechanically. Just needed winding. He set the cup down. I wound it for him. Set it to the correct time. Gave it back. He stood there in my shop, holding that watch, and I watched the hands move forward. Normal, steady. Then they got to 3:22. Caldwell paused. Outside, a cart rattled past. The sound faded. The hands stopped, he continued. Sat there for maybe 10 seconds. Then that grinding started. That sound you've heard. And the minute hand went backward. Just a few minutes. Then forward again. Then back. Holloway looked at me and said, "It's trying to go home." Emily felt something cold move through her chest. Not fear. Something else. Something that felt like standing at a graveside in winter. He carried it every day after that, Caldwell said. Checked it dozens of times. Hundreds, maybe. Always opening it at 3:22 if he could manage it. Pressing his thumb right where hers used to press. Wearing the metal down further. Making the wheel slip more. Making it run backward longer. He looked at Emily. His eyes were roomy but sharp. He wasn't trying to fix it, you understand. He was trying to break it in just the right way, so it would always return to that moment, so he could keep living in it, over and over. 3:22 on a Thursday afternoon. Thames Embankment. A woman in a blue cloak reading Dante. Emily closed the watch case. The sound it made was soft, final. "I'm not going to repair it," she said. Caldwell nodded. "Didn't think you would." He picked up the brass wheel in its box, looked at it for a moment. Then he stood, walked to the corner of his shop. "Is less than hashon. 5 hash is greater than," and dropped it into a bin filled with metal shavings. "Won't be needing that anymore," he said. Emily left the shop as the afternoon light began to fail. The watch was heavy in her pocket. Not heavy with weight, heavy with time. With all those years of opening and closing, all those moments of someone trying to hold on to something that was already gone. She walked slowly back toward Marchmont Street, past the book stalls on the embankment, past Blackfriars. She stopped at one stall, the same one maybe, or one that looked just like it. There was a copy of Dante there, Longfellow translation, cloth binding gone soft with age. She didn't buy it, just stood there, hand in her pocket, thumb pressed against the watch case, feeling it tick. Forward, backward, forward again. Always searching, always returning. Never quite home.